Hi, everybody. Let's adjust this down real fast a little. That's good. Pardon me. What's up? It's me, Jessica, your health fitness program manager from McLean, and we're going to get started standing before we hit the floor for today's yin yoga class. We got a lot of hip openers, some low back stretches, some hamstring stretches as per usual. The main purpose of today's class is focusing on elimination, eliminating thoughts, feelings, emotions that don't serve us, that don't make us feel good. Maybe your emotions are making you have some back pain or some low belly pain, but also, let's be honest, how's your diet? Are you feeling a little backed up physically and not just emotionally? Today's class is also going to be great for constipation. So make sure you have two blocks nearby. And I would even say keep one of them reachable to begin with. I'm just going to make sure everything is streaming properly. And then we're going to start standing in mountain pose. Okay, got the timer in the class. Let's do it. All right, so your block is within reach because you might want it in a moment or two if it's hard for you to reach the floor. Go ahead. Stand heels invisible behind your toes. Start to really ground through your feet, stretching your fingers down to the floor. Take your first couple breaths, just taking some nice, slow, deep breaths. Inhaling in through your nose, exhaling out through your nose or mouth, whichever feels most natural for you. Now I want you to take a moment and evaluate what's happening with your body. If you, like me, just push yourself away from your computer desk, is there still some rounding in your upper back shoulders? If so, squeeze your shoulder blades back and down. Take that proud lift of your chest. Start scanning your body, moving your way down. Can you squeeze your glutes and come a little bit more in line, stacking your head over your heart, over your hips, over your heels? And fingers still stretched down towards the floor for some decompression of your shoulders. We're going to spend one more minute here. Feel free to close your eyes, tune back into your breath. Start working towards that slightly longer exhale than inhale. You can keep your feet close together for now, but if you're having any discomfort in your low back, in your belly, you might want to heel toe your feet out a little bit wider, maybe wider than your hips, maybe in line with your shoulders. Root to rise for a moment. Inhale, arms all the way up overhead, and exhale, start to take a bend at your knees, hinge at your hips. If you're really not feeling great, forearms might come to rest on your thighs. And if you're feeling like you're ready for a little bit more of a stretch, belly still touching towards thighs, start to release your hands down towards the floor. Relax the crown of your head down towards the mat as well. And if you're game, stretch your hips up towards the ceiling so you can straighten your legs, a little weight shifting forward towards your toes. The more you start to bring your weight towards your toes, the more you're going to feel that big stretch in your hamstrings. Even though we're inverted, scan your body from head to toe. So if your shoulders are rounding up towards your ears or drawn up towards your ears, it's going to bring some rounding in your back as you engage your lats and relax your chest towards the floor, towards your belly. A little length, maybe a little arch even comes into your back instead of that rounding in your back. So drawing the shoulders away from the ears is going to give you more space into your forward fold. We're here for 2 more minutes. Work to create your stillness. So don't come into a stretch that's so deep that you need to release yourself out after a few breaths and come back in. Find that place that you can hold for today. And you don't have to have your hands on the floor. You can have your hands on the block. Remember, you can have your forearms on your thighs. If you even need to wrap your hands around your legs, you're still just working to bring your shoulders away from your ears and breathe into your stillness, clearing your thoughts of everything besides this breath, this moment, this stretch. So anytime throughout today's class that you find that your focus starts to go anywhere else, check in with yourself, acknowledge whatever pops into your head, take a big inhale, and then like you're a cat, use that exhale to just clear all those other thoughts off of your mental desk. 1 minute left right here. Excuse me. On your next inhale, come into a half lift. Hands can be on the floor, on the block, on your legs, and heel toe your feet out. Mats width distance apart, heels in, toes out. You might want your second block this time, especially if your hands are on your block. We're going to lower ourselves down and come into a squat. Now, if you came into this squat and your feet lifted up off the floor, I want you to transfer one or maybe both of your blocks to the back side of the mat so you can sit down and work towards bringing your heels to the floor. Maybe you even bring a proud lift of your chest, or maybe today you need to keep your hands down on the mat. But if you can take some of that rounding out of your back, great. And if you can sit on a lower portion of the block, go for it. We're going to be here for another minute and a half. You can press your elbows to your inner thighs to increase stability and the stretch. Find one spot to focus your eyes. If you need them open for balance, or close them, think about the hip opener that you're creating. Let that be your main stretch. Couple breaths left, equally pressing through all 4 corners of the feet. Notice if you have a lot of pressure coming towards that inner arch, especially if your hips are tight, that might be happening. And get ready to release. Take your time. Shift the weight a little forward. Bring your hands down to the mat. You can fall forward as you need to. And we're going to bring knees down to the mat. When you get here, you get to enjoy some cat-cow. Find the stretches that feel good for you. Feel free to shake your shoulders or your hips. You can take as much time holding in your cat or cow as you want for the next few breaths. All right. From your neutral tabletop, I want you to walk your hands about a foot forward. Then we're going to take the right knee, draw it to the right wrist, and wiggle your toes of the right foot to the left side of the mat. And then wiggle your left leg behind you. Don't come down just yet. Take a moment while you're lifted. You can always place your hands on a block if the floor feels really far away, if you're feeling really tight. But before we lower down, check out what's happening with your hips. We've got the right knee forward, and that probably means that the right hip came a little bit forward. Left hip is going back. So before you lower down, squeeze your glutes. See if you can roll a little bit more of the left hip flexor to the floor. You can even look over your shoulder. Check out, is your left leg nice and straight behind you? As you draw your right hip back, your left hip's going to come closer to the floor, or maybe it comes closer to your heel because you're really tight and your heel might be under your hip, and that's okay. If it feels good, you can lower yourself down to your block or the mat. Take a couple breaths here. I want you to check in now with how you're quote unquote relaxed on the floor. Did you come down and bring a lot of pressure into your elbows and a lot of rounding of your back? So it almost is like a hinge from your waist. If so, pull your chest forward. Instead of pushing your elbows down to the floor, think about dragging your elbows towards your hips, and that might also get your left hip flexor closer to the mat. Once you have this delightful length in your spine, if you want, you can still tuck your chin to your chest, or you can even use your block to support your head. We've got one more minute here. If you came down into forearms or even head on the ground as a sleeping swan, carefully start to lift yourself up. Tuck your left toes under. So lift your left thigh off the mat, and then you can bring your right leg back into tabletop. Left leg comes close to meet it. We're back into enjoying some cat-cow. Find the stretches that you want. Start to notice now that we have opened up that right hip a little bit more. Does the right side feel any different from the left? No judgment, no expectation, just noticing how your body feels today and where your body feels it. Enjoying each breath, one at a time. Can you try and make every breath today a little bit longer? Make every exhale a little bit slower. All right, push into your hands, palms back into your neutral tabletop. Walk your hands forward about a foot. Start to shift the weight forward as you draw your left knee towards your left wrist. Wiggle your right toes across your mat. Walk your right leg back. And hands still on the floor or your block, chest still lifted. Take that moment. Notice if your right hip is really coming behind you. Maybe you're even starting to bring your left glute to the floor. Left glute's going to fly nice and high. As you shift that left hip back, right hip comes down closer to the mat. You can look over your shoulder, try and get your right leg in a nice long straight line. And you can stay here if you need to, or you can start to lower yourself down. Honestly, I think it feels more comfortable to lower yourself down, but if the floor feels far away, Remember, you can bring your forearms to a block. Take a couple breaths when you get here, easing into the stretch, into your hips, into your glute hamstring. And then start to notice if you have that big rounding of your shoulders, if you're pressing your elbows down to the mat, can you pull your chest closer towards your triceps? Stretch elbows towards your hips. And if your head feels heavy, place a block underneath of it. Relax. We've got just over a minute to go here. Remember, we're working to that noticeable stretch that you can hold. So you don't want to come to a depth that's so deep that your breath is limited, or also that's so deep that you have to keep coming out of the stretch. And it doesn't matter if your stretch isn't as deep today as it was last week, or as it might be next week. Sometimes that's the hardest part of yoga, is knowing where your body has been or what you want it to do, and just not being ready for that today. Whatever you can bring, however much stillness that you can create, take pride in that. If you lowered yourself down to the floor, we're going to gently start to lift ourselves up. Tuck your right toe under this time. Send your left leg back into tabletop. Right knee comes to join it. Toes come together. You can open your knees out nice and wide. Send glutes back towards heels. Start to walk your arms as far forward as you choose this afternoon. Release your head down to the floor for child's pose. So you can have your arms stretched as far forward as you want, as generous of a bend in your elbows as your shoulders need, maybe even reaching your hands all the way towards the back of the mat. But we're going to come into that tadpole pose together in just a couple minutes. So if you can take a little extra stretch in your shoulders for these next 2 minutes and change, go for it. One more minute here. Use your inhales. Create as much space as you can on each of your back side ribs. Okay, we're going to bring the stretch to the mid upper back. So start to bring your eye gaze forward, lift your hips up. I like to walk my knees in to bring them back in line under the hips. And you're trying to stack your hips on top of your knees for puppy pose. You can have your arms stretched all the way forward. You can take a generous bend of your elbows if you need to. You might even want to slide a block underneath of your chest if the floor feels really far away. If you don't need that block, that's fine. And if you want even more of a stretch in your upper back, especially if your chest is touching the floor and your arms are straight forward, you can bring your eye gaze forward. Or just keep your head on the floor. Remember, we're working to create stillness. If this feels too much for you, sinking your chest down towards the mat, then you can come back into your child's pose. We got 1 minute left here. On your next exhale, start to sink your glutes back towards your heels, this time with your knees a little closer together. Head comes down towards the floor, and then drag your fingers like they're in sand so that your fingers are closer towards your heels. Palms facing up towards the ceiling. And just keep your head relaxed down on the floor. Shoulders gently drooping towards the mat, getting a big stimulation into our transverse colon here. Relax, take some big breaths. How much length can you create in your lower back, glutes coming towards heels? Two more super slow breaths. Start to drag the backs of the fingers forward, right in front of your knees. Palms come down towards the floor. Press yourself up. Let's come on to our glutes. We're coming into easy pose. If Sukhasana is uncomfortable for you, comfortable cross-legged seated position, then maybe you open your legs nice and wide into dragonfly. If you want to stay kneeling, that's totally fine as well. Um, Take a moment wherever you're sitting, however you're sitting, ground through your sit bones. Take a proud lift of your chest for a couple more. Notice if you're hinging forward or if you're rounding through your back, maybe your hands on your knees to help you find your proud lift, some heaviness of your elbows, engagement of your lower abs to keep your back feeling good. On your next exhale, start to bring your fingers in front of you. If the floor feels far away, bring your block in front of your hands. Keep your sit bones down on the mat. Hinge forward. Once your shoulders are in front of your hips, if you want to start rounding yourself down, you can. Just keep your sit bones on the floor. Glutes stay on the floor. You can be pretty passive in this forward stretch, or you can even take a bigger stretch into your back, pushing your hands, palms down onto the floor, rounding your chin towards your chest. Back to your neutral spine. Start to walk your hands all the way over to the right. Don't let your left sit bone come off the floor. Maybe even hold your own hand, intentionally drawing the left shoulder forward, right shoulder back. Think about drawing left shoulder forward and diagonally away from your left hip for even more of a stretch through the left side of your body. We got a couple of breaths left here. Find some relaxation in your neck. That was a lot of side body stretch. Let's carefully walk it over to the other side. This time, right sit bone stays down on the floor, but right shoulder can pull towards the left knee. Feel free to use your hands palms on the floor, or maybe even walk your hands further away from your body. You're creating the stretch that's right for you today, regardless of what this stretch might have looked like in the past. Start to walk your hands back to center and then into your center line. Extend your legs out nice and long in front of you. You can even bring your hands behind you. Ooh, take a nice big lift of your chest, squeeze of your shoulder blades, even eye gaze up towards the ceiling. A nice supported back bend after all of that rounding forward. And then release. Feel free to shake it out. All right, next up, we're coming into half stump. So keep your left leg nice and long. You might need to open your left leg a little bit towards the side. We're going to draw that right heel in as close to the center line as we can. Maybe you're holding on with both hands. Maybe you need to break out your strap right now. That's okay. I like to use the crook of my elbow to grab onto the leg, and then it makes it easier to ground through the sit bones and find that big, tall, proud lift of the chest. We're in this half stump for another, let's do minute and a half. Remember, if you need to, you can always create a little bit more space between your heel and the opposite leg. Maybe you're just holding on here instead of the tightness of this elbow crook grip. I'm going to lock it in because that's what feels comfortable for me. We got 1 minute left. So once again, right knee is coming towards the chest. So we're creating some stimulation for the ascending colon. And if you're ever feeling backed up physically, emotionally, mostly physically in this instant, make sure you start with the right side or else you can stay backed up. Last 2 or 3 breaths. When you're ready, release this bind or grip that you have. Extend your right leg long. Hands come behind you again. Take that nice little counter stretch. Rounding your back, stretching your chin up towards the ceiling. Maybe eye gaze even comes behind you. And then chin can return to your chest. Shake it out for just a second. Let's get the other side. Start with lengthening your spine. It's going to make it feel a little bit easier. So I'm already in a slight forward hinge, making sure that my back's not rounding behind my hips. This is going to make belly coming towards thigh easier as well. Draw your left leg up. As close as feels good for you today. Remember, you can always open that right leg to the side, especially if you're creating a little extra space for all your goodness. Maybe hands are on your shin. Maybe you're holding onto your elbow crook. The best news is we get to lay down after this. So keep pressing that left sit bone down. Keep lifting your chest up nice and high, creating a little extra compression of the left thigh into the lower left side abdomen, getting your descending colon. Awesome stillness. I imagine you created. When you're ready, go ahead, extend your left leg long, have a block nearby. We're going to lay down on our backs. Once you get to your back, draw your knees in towards your chest. Take a moment, roll gently side to side. Get as much of your back on the mat as possible. And then even give yourself a couple circles with your knees in one direction. Feet relaxed side by side. And circles with your knees in the opposite direction. We're just massaging our low back, sacrum to the mat. And then create a little bit of stillness, drawing both of your knees towards your chest, elbows stretched down towards your hips. Back of the head presses onto the mat. Nice little stretch into your neck, giving yourself double or triple chins here. So good for posture for all the forward head times that we have throughout the day. As much length through the crown of your head down to your tailbone as you can create, and as much of your back on the mat as possible. Two more breaths. And on your second exhale, you can carefully start to release the soles of the feet back down to the floor, keeping knees bent. Maybe they come down one at a time. Once they're firmly ground, grab hold of your block, use your inhale, lift yourself up, and then place that block right at your low back, right where that sacrum and your glutes are starting to hang out with each other. You can stay right here in the supported glute bridge with your legs where they are. If you want more of a stretch into your lower belly, even more help with that digestion, you can start to walk, wiggle your feet out further from the center line, but find a place where it feels comfortable to release them on the floor. Maybe it's all the way out nice and long. Maybe today's a day you need to keep a bend to your knees. Once you've firmly planted your feet, if you want an extra stretch, you can inhale your arms up overhead. Maybe grab hold of your opposite elbow or enjoy a nice cactus of your arms. Relax. Let's get two more full minutes here. How many breaths does it take you to get to the end of these 2 minutes? Those 2 minutes are up. So, how many breaths did you end up taking to get to the end of 2 minutes? I took 4.5. I would love when class ends if you did count your breaths. If you just put in the chat how long it took you, how many breaths in those 2 minutes. And then in the future, we can work to see if we can just relax even more because slowing your breath down is also going to help to reduce your blood pressure. It's going to make you feel more relaxed. It's going to give you a lower resting heart rate. You'll feel like you're recovering more quickly. All right. If you brought your arms up overhead or to the side, bring your arms back down by the side. Maybe you make that big snow angel. Maybe you reach up towards the sky and release your hands down to the mat. If your feet walked further out from the center line, start to walk your feet in. Once the soles of the feet are firmly planted under your knees, use your inhale. Lift yourself up off of your block, put it to the side, and then slowly lower yourself down one vertebrae at a time. Extend your legs nice and long, heels touch, toes fall open, and we're going to take a moment in Savasana, palms face up towards the ceiling. Relax. All right, toes up towards the ceiling. Flex your left foot, left toes coming towards your face, and bring your right leg up. Keep your back firmly planted on the mat. Pull your right leg out away from your body and then back in towards your chest. Interlace all 10 fingers 2 inches below the knee and keep the back of your head, back of the shoulders relaxed on the mat. If you're rolled all the way over to the right side, see if you can roll your left shoulder back down towards the mat and start to pull. As you pull your knee towards your chest shoulder, though, I want you to equally press a little bit your shin towards your hands palms. This is going to help you keep your lower back on the mat while you're creating this pushing and pulling sensation. Your biceps are getting a nice isometric hold. And you might even feel a pinching compression sensation in your lower right abdomen as we once again stimulate the ascending colon. Take one more big inhale. On your exhale, keep your knee bent, but you can release this pressure that you're creating. Left hand comes to the outside of the right leg. Extend your right arm nice and long to the side, and then roll it over to the side. You might even want to bring your block back to the party and place it underneath of your right leg during the spine twist. Let's take a couple breaths here. Relax, scan your body from head to toe. Where can you bring a little bit more relaxation into this stretch? Carefully untwist, roll to your back once again. Release your right leg down, heel touch, toes fall open, bring both arms back down by your side, palms facing up towards the ceiling, passing through Savasana. Flex both of your feet up towards the ceiling, low back firmly planted on the mat. Bring your left leg up out towards the side, avoid your rib cage, and then in towards your chest and shoulders. Interlace all 10 fingers all the way up to the webbing for your nice, tight, anti-arthritic grip. Your left calf muscle is still touching the floor. And if it's not touching the floor, keep flexing those toes to your face, particularly. And then start to pull. Pull your knee in towards your chest shoulder. While that pulling is happening, start to push. Abs activate. Lower back presses down towards the floor. Shoulders decompress away from ears. Elbows stretch down towards your hip if you're pushing and pulling. This time you might feel that pinching in your lower left abdomen for the last time today. Couple more breaths left here. Then go ahead, bring your right hand outside of your left knee. Extend your left arm out towards the side. You can use your right foot to help you roll over to the left side. To find your spine twist. Relax both of your shoulders to the mat if you can. Maybe you're focusing more on stacking your hips today, getting a bit more of a twist. It's up to you. Find what feels good. Let's take a couple breaths here. This is our last asana for final savasana. All right, carefully roll onto your back one more time. I lied. Let's get one more knees to chest pose. Just one more moment, simulating that transverse colon. Can you keep both of your knees squeezed in towards each other this time? Still stretching your elbows down towards your hips, the back of the head down on the floor, as much length in your spine as possible. One more big inhale. And on your exhale, release your feet to the mat. Extend your legs out nice and long. Maybe heels touch and toes fall open. Maybe you open your arms a little bit wider, legs a little bit wider. Here we are. Final savasana, final time to create stillness together. So scan your body from head to toe, and where can you relax a little bit more? Each exhale completely melting into the mat. Allowing yourself to relax and be supported by your floor, by your breath. We did some really big hip openers today with lots of those squats and the single knee drives. So that means opening our hips, we are opening the pathway for any stored emotions. Definitely encourage you to drink lots of water after today's class to help continue to flush the toxins out of your body. You're welcome to stay here in this final Savasana for as long as feels good for you. If you're ready to close out today's practice, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and make your way into a comfortable seated position of your choice. Well, when you get there, ground through your sit bones once again. Inhale your arms up overhead, hands, palms come together. Release your hands down to heart center, palms touching on your chest, sternum. In Namaskar, and feel free to tuck your chin to your chest. Take a moment to bow to and honor yourself. Just because we're coming off of the mat does not mean you can't still keep practicing yoga throughout your day, week, weekend. So the next time that you're confronted with a challenging thought, feeling, before you react, can you take at least one slow, deep breath? Till we are together again, I encourage you to think good thoughts. Speak good words, not just to others, but to yourself. Eat good foods. Do good deeds. Take at least that one breath every day to focus on you and nourish yourself from the inside out. If no one's told you today, then you're special. I hope you feel that every day. If it feels right, you can bring your thumb to your third eye, your drishti, your focus. Just tapping it to stimulate. Lift your heart and know that the light within me honors, sees, and is so thankful for the light within you. So please keep coming, keep showing up. Together we can do anything. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste.